You guys, I actually went out and bought sweaters so I don't have to sit in a sports bra every day while I film. How cute is this? We know I love a checkered print anything. You probably are like, girl, that's ugly. Anyway, hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. I am very excited for today's video. It is going to be an update in my No Pan Left Behind series. And I'm going to be tweaking this project a little bit as we get to the end of the year. And I think this will be the way that I tweak this project going forward. And I might rename this to like No Pan Left Behind / Eyeshadow Diaries. And let me tell you my thought process on this. We're getting towards the end of the year. I still have a full bin of eyeshadow palettes that are new to my collection that I'm still working my way through testing. And so I've been neglecting the palettes that have been randomly rolled into this project. And I'm also wanting to start the Eyemageddon, I think is what Kat calls it, or like a palette reckoning project, where I go in alphabetical order and test every palette and decide if I want to keep them or not. I've been keeping a list of everything that I've No Pan Left Behind it this year, but if I go in alphabetical order, then I like very specifically want to be working on palettes. So I still am going to be No Pan Left Behinding, and I still want to share updates on this. And I know so many of you say that you like when I share different looks that I create with palettes. So the tweaks that I'm going to make is just that I'm not going to be like randomly selecting palettes to work on in this project, and every month I'm going to come on and share with you every single eyeshadow palette that I was able to complete No Pan Left Behind, meaning that I've used every single shade in the eyeshadow palette at least one time, and then I will share the looks that I created with those palettes. And those are the tweaks that I'm making. I hope that's okay. If there's any other tweaks you'd like to see me make in the future with this, let me know in the comments. But that being said, I have 8 eyeshadow palettes that I was able to complete No Pan Left Behind this month. So if you're interested in which palettes those are and the looks that I created, stay tuned. First, if you have yet to subscribe to my channel and you like project painting content, palette themed content, or just chit chatting about makeup, I'd love if you'd consider subscribing before moving on. And other than that, let's jump into the video. Okay, I will say I have done my makeup so much this past month. Most weekends, especially the weekends that my daughter is at her dad's, I literally will do my makeup at least 2 if not 3 times a day. There were so many eyeshadow palettes that released though, and I definitely wanted to create looks with all of the new palettes. So I think just about every palette that I'm sharing today is new. There's a few that I have a full dedicated review on, so some of the looks that you'll be seeing will be obviously looks repeated from those videos. Maybe we can kick it off with something that is not new. I did purchase this year, but it took me a long time to complete this palette. This is the Blend Bunny Surge eyeshadow palette. There are a few looks, I was just digging through all of my pictures and I'm like, there's a few looks I feel like I'm missing from this palette, but I think my favorite look, it's so tough. I've actually really enjoyed the looks that I've created with this palette, and this palette has definitely stretched me outside of my comfort zone. I did a look where I did the shade Shocked on the inner corner. I did like a bronzer in the crease, and then I did a brown wing, and that was a repeated look from last year. I really loved the way that that look turned out. During Timberwolves playoff season, I did like a blue and green look that I also thought was really fun. I dabbled with cut creases a little bit, and I really focused on these 2 shades. That was also an all matte look, which is definitely a little bit different for me. And then I didn't think that I liked this look that I'll post over here, but I had like the oranges and pinks still to use, and I really wasn't sure what to do. And as I was creating the look, I was like, this is not coming together. But then when I look back at the pictures, I'm like, okay, that was actually really quite fun. I have had such good luck using the matte shades in this palette. I just feel like the mattes kind of blend themselves. Even these brights, I feel like truly show up so punchy on the eyes. Sometimes I do like to layer put a white base down just to make them pop a little bit more. But even without the white base, I feel like these really do pop on the lids. I also did create one kind of more neutral look with this eyeshadow palette just to prove that you could do a neutral look using this palette. But I think this is such a fun one from Blend Bunny. Again, definitely makes me kind of stretch outside of my comfort zone, which I think is really fun, and I really do appreciate and value this palette for that. And I honestly just love to have the neon eyeshadows in this palette. So before we move on, I forgot at the introduction, I didn't mention I do have a Excel list of all of my palettes that I have completed so far this year. I believe I'm at 65 with these 8 palettes included, which honestly makes me so happy. We have 3 months yet for this year, so I don't necessarily know that I will reach 100. I would have to like keep really chugging along doing my makeup like every day, but we'll see. All right, maybe a more boring palette, but honestly a great one just for day to day. This is the Lawless, the Dreamy Dozen. I almost said Dreamy Dozen Duo. The Dreamy Dozen Volume 2. Lawless actually sent this over to me, and admittedly, I will say I've been really hot and cold with Lawless eyeshadows in the past. I have loved a lot of her smaller palettes. I think have been good. I really loved the baby one. I liked the glam one, but ultimately I ended up decluttering those. I did not like the really big one. So I was kind of like, am I gonna like this? Am I not? Do I think you have these shadows in your collection? Most likely, yes. Do I think this is the most special palette ever? No. But I will say this past week as I've been testing this, it's been so easy just to create a quick look that's still really fun for the fall that I can wear to work and feel confident in. Two of the three looks that I created using this palette, I do feel like look quite similar. We've got some warms, but then we do have like a more cool smoky row, and I think the cool smoky row is also really beautiful. The mattes in this palette I have not had issues blending. I feel like in the past sometimes I have not had the best luck with I feel like sometimes in the past I have not had the best luck with Lawless eyeshadows, and in fact the last Lawless palette that I tried was the Lavender One eyeshadow palette, and I ripped that palette to shreds. I thought that was one of the worst eyeshadow palettes I've tried in a really long time. So I was really happy that this was not that formula. Again, it's not going to be the most special eyeshadow palette ever, but I feel like for like a utilitarian, just like easy, you don't really have to think about it palette, this is really good. I think the metallics in this are really beautiful. They're punchy in the eyes, they last all day. I don't feel like they get like dull throughout the day, and so I'm actually like pretty happy with this eyeshadow palette overall. Let's jump into the 3 palettes that I do have full dedicated reviews on. So I will quickly show the looks over on the side here for these, but if you'd like to see like more in-depth like tutorials on how I created each of the looks, I will also link those videos in my description box down below. We have the Cosmic Beauty Undergrowth palette, which is so stunning. The shimmers are truly for like neutral shimmers that are going to be like bold but still neutral. This might be one of my favorite palettes for that. If you are a green loving gal, I would highly recommend the Cosmic Beauty Undergrowth palette. There were a couple matte shadows in this palette that I did struggle with a little bit, but still I think this palette is worth it. The shimmers, I just cannot get over how beautiful the shimmers are in this palette. So all right, then I have the Bella Beauté Bar Poison Garden eyeshadow palette. I'm such a big fan of Bella Beauté Bar, and in fact I ordered the Vamp palette, which I ordered that yesterday on launch day. I'm not exactly sure when this video will be going up, but perhaps by the time this video goes up, it'll already be in my hands. I will say I was nervous when I saw they were launching a Vamp palette. I was like, is this gonna be all blacks and reds? I'm actually really excited to use the like bright cherry red in that palette. I feel like it's such a well curated palette for like a vampire palette. I'm also so excited for the like sparkly like no base shadow. I saw Hope Mess Tom post like a swatch on their Instagram, and I was like, I need that immediately. But the Poison Garden eyeshadow palette, again, I have a full dedicated review on. I have 3 looks using this palette. I so enjoyed my time creating looks with this, and in fact I do have a 4th look with this that I created after that using kind of the purples just so I could use every shade in this palette. My favorite shade is likely Poison Ivy. What was the other one I really like? Opium Poppy. Oh, Angel's Trumpet. So beautiful, but I think Poison Ivy is quite possibly one of my favorite eyeshadows in my entire collection. I love a blue-green, like aqua leaning shade. I love a blue-brown, and I feel like this is like if you were to marry like the depth of a blue-brown with like the brightness of an aqua brown sort of situation. I don't know, it's so beautiful on the lids. I really enjoyed the looks that I created using this palette. I love a cobalt blue. Cobalt blue might be one of my favorite just colors in general, and so I love the matte cobalt. I will say the shade Wisteria is quite an interesting shade. It's like cobalt blue, but then it kind of has this like UV blue sort of finish to it. I used it not on top of a base. I will say I think it might be best on top of a base. I saw Angelica Nikovas look with I believe, these shades, and I was literally drooling. So I want to try that with a white base as well, but this palette is absolutely stunning. All right, and then the last palette that I completed that I do have a full dedicated review on is the Danessa Myricks Light Work Volume 6 eyeshadow palette. I was a little bit nervous doing like a dedicated review on this palette because I was like, ooh, can I create full looks using just this palette? But I actually was able to do that. I kind of like that she has the addition of these kind of like satin shades. They're definitely not totally matte, but you can create a full look. I'm just not someone who typically does a full shimmer look, so I was really, really nervous about that. I did mix in like an actual like makeup powder to kind of help blend everything together, but I really had so much fun playing around with this eyeshadow palette. I think it's so bright and colorful and fun. You guys know I'm a huge fan of Danessa Myricks shadows, so I'm very happy to have this in my collection. Should we jump into the palette that is on my eyes right now? This is the Bella Beauté Bar Recently De-Influenced eyeshadow palette. When I purchased Poison Garden, I meant to purchase Strange and Unusual at that time, but I totally forgot. In like the chaos of ordering all of the palettes that I wanted to order on Friday the 13th when Poison Garden launched, I totally forgot. And then I was like, maybe it's a sign I don't need it. But then I saw Brittany Ray on Instagram swatch Recently De-Influenced, which I really have not thought about wanting this palette just because these shadows in this palette don't necessarily speak to my soul, specifically these, but the look that I created using these shadows I think might be my favorite. I thought it was such a fun, punchy red-orange shade. This shade right here in the pan doesn't look as bright as it comes across on the lids. I thought it was so much fun. And then I created a look today using these, oh my gosh, these shades right here. I used this shade on the outer like half of my eye and I wasn't loving like the red with the purple, so I actually then layered this shade right here, Screenshot, over top of that, and I really feel like it kind of pulled it together. And then I have Bold Glamour on like the inner part of my eye, and then I used Digital Zombie for the true like inner corner. I will say the shade Screenshot is this really, really beautiful kind of purple to green shifty shade, and I'd be excited to try that like on its own, not necessarily layered over top of a red. The one thing I will say is I am definitely noticing a little bit of creasing, but only on this lid, so perhaps that's a me problem. I love Bella Beauté Bar's formula. They are one of my absolute favorite indie brands, and they just make such a beautiful eyeshadow. This shade right here, again, like an aqua teal shifty shade. I want all the blue, green, tealy shades, but not a mint. Very specific, like a teal. So this is Recently De-Influenced. It was a month of Bella Beauté Bar. I also have my Bella Beauté Bar Basic Witch eyeshadow palette, which was my first Bella Beauté Bar eyeshadow palette, and it really made me fall in love with the brand. I had so much fun creating looks with this palette, and now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I don't think I went all the way back to gather like the looks that I did this summer. If you are wanting something a little bit more neutral with this palette, you can just follow this row right here. My favorite look that I created using this palette is the one that kind of looks, that's like Beetlejuice inspired. It was the pink and the green. This was one I was not super confident as I was creating it, but then like the final look I loved so much, and I actually filmed a video like wearing that look and you guys complimented me so much. You really boosted my ego. Thank you so much for that. Sometimes we need a little ego boost. My favorite shades in this palette, Perfectly Wicked is a really, really beautiful kind of cool tone pink shimmer. It's so pretty. I love Incantation. It's this really beautiful kind of orangey bronze shifty shade. Also Hocus Pocus and Cauldron. I'm really sad that this shade shattered on me. That was a really fun one, but the purple, I even love this oh my gosh, this lavender purple matte shade is so stunning on the eyes. There's so many different ways you can take this eyeshadow palette. I absolutely love this one, and I had so much fun working on this. All right, the final palette is kind of a boring one to end with, but I really love this one. This is the Natasha Denona I Need a Warm. I've said a couple times already on my channel that I feel like this might quickly become my favorite midi palette from Natasha Denona. And what I love about this is that we have neutrals and warms, and there's just like there's definitely some variation in these shimmer shades. Like they don't all just look the same. We have like a taupey champagne, we have this multi-chrome shadow, we have like a pink, we have kind of like a greeny taupey shade. It just feels like there's a little bit more variety in this eyeshadow palette than there typically is with Natasha. I feel like you can take this one light, you can take it very like warm and smoky. Do I have something? What is that? Has that been there? I was like, is there a smudge on my camera, or did I just, oh my gosh, that's so embarrassing. That hasn't been there the whole time. I would have noticed. That must have come when I did my basic witch. Oh gosh. Well, okay. Well, good thing I plan to take my makeup off and do it again later, because now we're looking crazy. I don't know if I took my oh my gosh, what am I thinking? Thumbnail picture yet. Oh well. Where was I going with this? I just think it's a really beautiful one. Is it the most exciting thing ever? No, but for a neutral or warm leaning or just like everyday palette, I feel like it's an exciting everyday palette. Do you get what I mean? Anyway, this is the 8th and final No Pan Left Behind completed palette this month. That is going to wrap it up for today's video. Thank you guys so much for sticking around to watch and for supporting me and my channel as you guys always do. I love you guys so much, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye.